Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Chow. In today's episode, we get into a little bit more of a technical, techniques type of episode, where I went into archives and I found one of these pieces of equipment, okay? This is what we refer to as a Video IO Box, okay? So we're going to talk about what that thing does and basically talk about connections and basically how to wire up stuff back in the past. Because it's something that's not a new concept. Well, not in a different way. It's a different kind of concept today, right? So before I begin, I'd like to remind everyone to go down below, click like, and click subscribe. So again, this is to make the YouTube algorithm work. If anything, just press the like button. It does do a lot to help the YouTube algorithm promote it to different people, right? So that's really good. And for those who like to support me financially, I do also have the Super Thanks button down below, as well as the links for the PayPal and the Patreon. Now, I've been building a lot to the Patreon recently. I've now put a lot of resources available to you people, as well as a lot of the content that is for the subscribers that I cannot put on YouTube, because there's now a lot of topics that I'm now covering which are not allowed to be put on the YouTube, so all those things are now available to the members there. As well as I've also now put the my audiobooks available as in audio form and on video form as well. Those are also partially free to the Patreon members, so do check that out. Okay? And so for all the other new users that are on this channel, I've also compiled all the episodes of the History of Fan Anime into a large database sheet. And if you like to basically look at different episodes that are pertaining to certain topics, like maybe CDs or maybe art books or maybe the fan culture itself, like conventions and that kind of stuff, they're all put together in a book-like fashion and they're put into the spreadsheet. Again, the link is below, as well as other resources like the database sheets for the My Anime list of the 1980s, and of course the top 30 animes of the 1980s is also all available in spreadsheet form there. Link is below. And I've also done some updates to my Patreon shop page. So now you've put the audiobooks for 1, 2, and 3 are now available on the shop page, as well as the video complement version, so like a running slideshow with the audiobooks in case you want to have something to look at, as well as have the book read to you as well. That is available on the Patreon as well. The newest volume is volume 3. I just put the audiobook up for that one, and the single volume is going up on there now. Okay, so again, if you're looking for the video, sort of video slideshow and the audiobook is put there all on one, and those things are available there. Again, if you are at any of the tiers, whether it is Buy Me a Coke or any of the subscription tiers, you get these books for free. The video versions, you get a huge discount on because of the way that the Patreon works. The size of the files can only be a certain size, and so what I'll cut it up into different sort of either CD size or DVD size proportions for you, so that you can make them into those particular files for you. And again, so those will either be either totally free or with a huge discount on them. Okay, that's if you're with your subscription. If you don't want to be a subscriber and that, that's fine. They are available individually as well. So do check that out. Okay, in today's episode, we're going to talk about this device that I found in my archives called a Video IO Box. Okay, so this is the thing right here. Okay. Let's do a quick, sort of view through it, and basically you can see it has a whole bunch of different sort of connectors and converters and all that kind of stuff for it. And so we'll talk a little bit about this thing in this particular episode. So, do a little bit of history beforehand about these particular units. Okay, so we're at an age. Okay, so we're 1989. Okay, when I first bought one of these things. These things are not cheap. They're pretty close to about $1,000 for one of these things, okay? And you go, okay, well, why? Why is it so expensive? It's almost as expensive as buying a whole new computer, and in a sense, it is. In this era, a lot of things that have to do with video processing and that kind of stuff can't be done by the computer. right? The computer is too slow, doesn't have enough memory, doesn't have hard drive space. It can't do any video processing on its own. So what happens is you have to buy devices which do the video processing outside the computer, and the computer is just sort of an in-between. Actually, it's almost one of these devices by itself to do the processing for you. So basically, every device does a little bit of something to the video before it actually goes through. So I'm going to basically, the best way to sort of work through this is basically explain how and what the flow of data and flow of information goes, and illustrate this in the way by showing you how and how you're supposed to connect these together. Because obviously a lot of us here go, okay, well, you buy a new computer or something, or you buy a DVD player. You go, okay, well, how do you hook up the DVD player to the TV? Well, you usually have to buy a special cable, HDMI or whatever, and you have to hook them up one-on-one, or you're using composites, so the multi-colored cables, and you got to hook up in the right order of those cables. Okay, things like that is what we sort of have to do modernly with the DVD player. Similar concept in the that you have to do with these things here. And so we'll spend a little bit of a time and show you some of the diagrams and that kind of stuff on how we had to hook this up and what this particular box does. So without further delay, let's begin.
So if you've ever looked in the back of your TV or your back of your stereo system, or even in the back of your computer, it probably looks something like this. A big mess of wires that go everywhere, hooking up all your different devices and all your different things, whether or not it's internet, audio, video, game controllers, and whatnot. They're all sort of a big, huge mess. So in this episode, I'm going to go through how we hooked up the video subtitling equipment to the computer and how it's all sort of done, and to sort of give you kind of an idea. Well, not necessarily how to hook it up, but just how the workflow and how the information in the video has to go in order to get the subtitles onto the actual video. So let's go through that first. Okay, so here we have our typical sort of laserdisc player. This happens to be a Pioneer M90, and you're going to take the output from this particular unit. From the video output, and we're going to take it and put it into the next device. So this basically will play your laserdisc, play the video, and then you're going to take that video output and then you're going to send it to another device to start the first piece of processing. Okay. Now the first thing that usually we'll send it through first would be a time-based corrector to basically stabilize the video. Laserdiscs, generally speaking, have really good picture stability and everything like that. So it doesn't really need it for the most part, but sometimes when we did subtitles off of VHS tapes and off of the like TV recordings of, like, say, for example, like Sailor Moon and whatnot, Miracle Girls, I think, and Hime-chan Ribbon, we did a lot of the subtitling straight off of the TV record copies, right? So that we sent through what they call the time-based corrector to try to fix that. So let's start with with this we'll start with a standard connection from the laserdisc. We're going to use RCA cables because those are those round ones that connected to the video out there, and we're going to take that video signal and we're going to put it into the time-based corrector. Okay, so this is a time-based corrector made by Digital. It's the Personal TBC4. This one is a ISA-slotted card, which fits inside the Amiga computer or in a regular sort of PC. Now, I think in my case, I just used a standard, like 386 or something, just something I wasn't using anyway. And I just plugged this thing into it, and basically it just supplies power to it. I don't even think I even hooked up a keyboard or a monitor to this computer. And that's all it does. It just turns on, supplies power to the TBC, and lets me correct the video. All right, so we have a quick look at the connectors in the back here. Okay, and when we have a closer inspection with the actual connector, we see that it has an SVHS in and an out, but it also has an NTSC in and out. But the NTSC connections are BNC connectors. So we need a RCA phono to BNC connector converter to convert the cable so that it can come in, and then we'll convert it to take the signal back out. Okay, so now that we got the video all nicely processed and stabilized and whatnot, now we're going to have to take that video signal and take it to the Genlock. Okay, so now the Genlock I was using was the Super Gen. Okay, and it basically has connectors for obvious different videos and that kind of stuff. And so this one's obvious. We just plug this one into the video in. Okay, so now our Genlock now has the proper video that we need. Okay, so now let's go and take a look at what kind of computer output that we're going to do in order to overlay it, because now so we got the video part that we want to overlay. So now we got to get the video that of the computer part that we want to overlay. So let's see if we can get those two together. Okay, so now let's go for a different type of input. Now let's try to get the computer input. So in this case, I initially started using an Amiga computer, but again, I got rid of the stupid thing because it was just horrible. And so instead, I started using the Power Mac. Okay, I think I started with something a lot less, like a Centris, and then I went up to a Quadra. Then finally, I went up to like this, Power Mac here. Okay, but basically, what it is, you got to take the output of this Mac, which is your subtitles, right? You use either the space bar or you use the subtitling system, which I use was TurboTitler. I'll have to get into an episode where I actually talk about how I got that software. But then you take the output from that, and then we want to send that to the Genlock. So then that way it has your video, which is the anime, and we got the output of which is the translation. It's got to go into the main thing and be mixed together and Genlock together, and then basically you want to record that output. Okay, so let's flip to the back of the Mac, and you can see that it has your standard 15-pin RGB connector on the back of it. So then that makes it pretty simple, kind of. We need to then basically take and plug the 15-pin RGB to something, because we have to convert it, right? Because obviously there's nothing on the Super Gen that looks like that. That kind of a 15-pin connector, because the 15-pin connector on the Mac is different than the 15-pin connector on the Amiga. So then we go, okay, well, here's the problem. You see, we need to take the video signal out of the Mac, right? But we also need to see the Mac, right? Because one, yes, part of the signal that you have on the Mac, you have to see for yourself, because we want to see the output and everything. But also that input has to be split and go to the Amiga. Okay, so you need kind of like a Y splitter, but in a sense, it also has to be a pass-through. So this is where you would use the Vid IO Box, because it actually has that. So let's go to that and let's see what I mean by that. Okay, so here we have the Truevision Vid IO Box, or Video Box. Okay. And it's pretty plain on the front. It just has some small controls for controlling sync phase and hue and your saturation, right? So not really much you don't play about that. But the most important thing is if you flip it to the back, you can see all the different things it can do. Now it has both a decoder and an encoder in it, and basically what the function is supposed to be able to take video output and convert it into a RGB signal, or take an RGB signal and convert it into an SVHS or a composite signal. So basically, it's supposed to be able to do both operations, make it, take RGB and make it into video / SVHS, or SVHS and make it into video. So that's what the idea of this particular box does. It allows you to do those switching functions, which is exactly perfect for what we needed to do here. So coming out of the Mac, we obviously have this signal that needs to be divided, because obviously part of the input can go into the input of this Vid IO box, and it has a pass-through or a loop. Okay, so that loop can go back into the computer so that you can see what the hell you're doing on the computer, right? Without the overlay and with all that stuff, right? So that's doable by this box. Okay, but you also want that input coming from the computer, you need that to go to the Genlock box, right? Because that's what needs to be overlaid on top of the anime. So it also has a set of outputs, red, green, and blue, designed for that. So this box will allow you to do the switch between those two things there. Okay, so again, you need a set of RGB to MAC cables, and then we're going to use a set of RGB to the Amiga cable there. Okay, which is it's kind of the same cable, but it's a little different. Because it's just the way that the pin connector on those things are laid out, right? So there you go. So one MAC cable connector and one Amiga connector there. Okay, so let's summarize what we've done here. So we basically take the output that we got from the Laserdisc player, right? We're going to hook up the Laserdisc player, and we're going to hook that up to the TBC, or the time-based corrector. Then, once we've hooked up the time-based corrector, we take the signal out of that one, and we put that into the Genlock, okay? So now, the Genlock has the input video. Okay, so that's your anime that you want to basically put the subtitles onto. Perfect. Okay, so that line of input's done. Your second line of input is obviously the subtitles that are coming out of your Mac computer. So you basically have this computer generating the subtitles, and that computer has to be, eventually go to the Genlock. But there's different connectors, right? So this is where that Super IO box comes in to basically not only give me one feed of videos to go back to the monitor, so I can see what I'm doing on the computer. And you need one feed of that computer to go into the Genlock, okay? So will give you the computer output, or the subtitles, to go on top of the video, okay? Now, the Genlock will now do its magic and use the sliders and whatever you want to do with it to basically superimpose what you have on your video coming out of the Laserdisc player on with the subtitles that are coming out of your computer. It mixes and mashes that together and does all the the hard work right there, okay? And then it has the output, okay? So of course on the Super Genlock, there's two outputs on it. You can send one to a VCR and record the output. So therefore, that is a Generation 0 subtitled copy of whatever that anime is. There you go. It is now on the video cassette. The second output, you can either hook up to the VCR, or you can hook up to the actual Genlock itself to provide a real-time monitor so you can see what the hell you're doing, especially if you're going around playing with the sliders and that kind of stuff. Again, very rarely did we ever play around with the sliders, but because they were more or less set in the full positions, so that you get full capacity of the subtitles, and basically no overlap between, or no sort of transparency between the subtitles and the actual video, right? So because we want the subtitles to be as clear as possible and as opaque as possible, right? So there we go. So that is the essential diagram or the wiring diagram of how to hook up the equipment and how the subtitling equipment and that kind of stuff work. Again, in time it changed a little bit, because I was experimenting with the Amiga, and I was experimenting with how to do it on PC, how to do various different things, and it ended up that I went to and did it on the Mac. Because the most powerful software that I ended up getting was on the Mac. Okay, so one of these episodes I'm gonna have to go back and talk about how I got that software and how we ended up doing that.
Okay, I hope you found that interesting, and hopefully that the technical part didn't confuse you too much. But again, for a lot of the people who sort of have to deal with hooking up, for example, the monitor to the computer, or to hooking up a DVD player to a TV. It's not that difficult. Even hooking up, say, something like, for example, your PlayStation to your controllers and the power supply to the internet, and obviously to your TV. It's a similar type of thing. It's a lot of connections to hook it up to different devices. And this is exactly what this device does. And again, in our time, it was way more complicated. All right. So hopefully this helps you fill it in a little bit more. And again, we'll talk a little more about old-fashioned tech in future episodes, all right? So, until next time, I will see you again.